Hi, everybody. Today we bring you ORIZON 2.0, interviews that brings context to many different cultural experiences living in Texas for those who once lived abroad full time. Before we start, I would like to explain our why for this platform. At times we stop living when experiences get hard. We can interpret resistance or challenges as a red light, when in fact it's a green light. It's a green light for change and to push through. Success isn't saved for the most talented. It holds space for the most persistent and who choose not to give up in the midst of challenges, but search for alternatives or another route to take. And anyone who knows me from childhood to now know this to be true of myself and my personal surroundings. I'm with you today to help you see the best version of yourself, to follow your heart against all odds, because at times our mind can consume us with data, statistics, generational beliefs, and fear. My name is Micaela. I am the founder of ORIZON, and let's get started. Let's go. Thank you, Cindy, for coming. We like to bring you into the safe space so you can tell your story.
Thank you. Hi, Michaela. Hi, everybody. I'm Cindy. I am a first-generation immigrant, and then I graduated from UTA, and I moved to the northwest of Dallas around like 15, 20 years ago. And I am a retired IT specialist, and right now I'm just like a retiree, so just enjoying my life. And then I mostly enjoy traveling around the world. And
you look so young, though. So when did you retire? Because you are very young.
I think I officially retired about 3 years ago. I enjoy traveling around the world, experience different culture, food, and then see different perspective of life. And here I am, so since I retired, I have more time to, explore different perspectives. So I have never done dancing in my life. So here we go. And then, yeah, so I remember the first time, I guess, bumping into your class basically is because I went to the place I work out, and then it was a music that you play drew my attention. So it was the vibrant music that drew me in.
So the door was open in the classroom.
The door was open, and then so I got to hear the music, and then I came in and then just trying to try the class, So that's how we met, I guess.
Yeah, because that's one thing people don't realize. Like, you can be on the treadmill or the Stairmaster or lifting weights. If you're at a rec center, if you're a fitness center, whatever it may be that has that multi-cultural experience where you're working out or doing classes. And it could be dance classes, it could be reading classes, it could be American Lit classes, any type of class that you feel that everything is separated. But then if someone leaves a door open, it draws in that curiosity. So if someone's on the treadmill or if they're lifting weights, they're like, what's that music? Or if you hear people talking or like doing that grito, that scream of happiness with music, you're like, what is that? And it allows people to be curious. So they just poke their heads in and you're like, oh, okay, I didn't even know this was here. Because a lot of us, we don't take time out to read schedules anymore. Because I don't either. Unless someone tells me like, oh, come, this is a great class, then I go. Because things sometimes look good on social media, but then you go and you're like, this teacher, I don't even understand what this music is saying. And they're not even explaining so I can understand the music better. Yeah. Because everyone's intentions are different. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for volunteering the information, because that's something people don't realize, how things link together.
Yeah.
Of why that person's there. Because if you never danced before, or if you weren't raised around it with music or dance or different cultures, people are like, okay, so have you always liked it and now you're doing it, or you're getting a chance to do it? But it's like an opportunity presented itself.
Yes.
When you weren't looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you just jumped in.
That's right. Yeah.
And then like 3 years later now, you could feel the difference.
Yeah, that's right. And then I remember you greet with everybody with a big smile.
Yeah.
And then, that's how I feel. I can feel your warmth and your love, your passion about the dance. And then Michaela always use a consistent structure, to teach us how to dance. And then through repetition. And then someone like me, or even a 70 years old lady, remember that lady came to our class?
Yeah.
She has no prior dancing experiences. Everybody can follow you and then learn how to dance in a very efficient way.
Yes. And then thank you. And you're great at translating. Because same thing, like those who come abroad and take classes, and if a teacher or an instructor isn't more, not just always vocal, but use a different gesture to communicate with the class, you can lose a large population who want to come and move or feel good or detox. And it doesn't matter how old anybody is. You can be from toddler to teenager to young adult to, let's say, if you're 40s and then going into senior, like everyone has the capabilities of moving and feeling good through movement instead of being frustrated or aggravated, or not feeling like it's productive for you. Because that's one thing. None of us want to go somewhere and we felt like it was a waste of time.
Yeah, and then I think you also have a really good way. You create a really open learning environment, so everybody is willing to try, and then so that we are not resistant in any way just because we don't have any prior dancing experiences. We can still learn. Yes. So it's that kind of open environment that attract more people to come to your class.
Oh, thank you. So from everything that you've learned with the Afro-Caribbean dancing for these past 2 to 3 years, what is something that you have enjoyed the most, the part of dancing or different parts of it?
I think the most, I will say a couple things. One thing is that I think you infuse your love of dance plus the passion for cultural diversity into teaching us. So we're not learning only the dance, the choreography, we also learn about attitude to life. And the other thing is that I like the way that you utilize the video. So it's a volunteer-based video, experiences. So we can learn the dance and then do video as well, and then that help us to do self-evaluation, and then also help us to get more confidence. Yeah, that's the most. I think that's the thing I find the most.
So you feel like through the videos you've been able to build your confidence.
Yes,
through the videos, because you're very consistent. Like once someone presents to you of how the choreography should be or the sequences, you're very consistent. And I love that, because that's something like if my mind goes somewhere else going, okay, what's the next song I can play? And then miss while we're dancing, my mind goes somewhere else. Then I may jump 2 or 3 steps ahead, but you're still like this. And I turn around, I was like, oh shit, I missed that part. And then I'll jump back in. And I love that. Do you feel that approach is part of your culture? That the structureness?
Yeah, I think so. It's part of the culture, part of the way I was raised upon, and then also because I think you also instilled that structure in the class, so it's easier for me to follow with like I don't have any prior dancing experiences. So I think the structure is very important for me, to learn it, and then to to watch you do it, and then so that I know how to do it, and then you basically drew it down to different detail so that it's easier for us to follow.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So from living in Taiwan full time, how old were you when you came to America?
I was 23 years old when I first came to the United States.
How have you liked Texas?
I think it's quite right for me.
How was it when you first arrived?
It was mostly a white community with a really friendly and southern hospitality. And then but back then, you won't find a lot of foreigner around here. You won't even find different restaurant here. But look at here right now. We have so many different culture, and then Dallas, and I guess the whole area, including Dallas, it's become a cultural melting pot. And then you can find people from different area of the United States. You can even find people from different culture, even different nationality. And then,
do you feel like the shift has happened more these recent 10 years or 15 years?
I think in the past 10 to 15 years. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think it even helped with COVID. Like COVID really flipped it, especially seeing more New Yorkers and people from California move into Texas. So you see a lot more diversity.
Yes.
And then people also very gently, diplomatically pushing back. So then people can be seen because they know what it is to live in other states and the value for people to be seen. If it's through marketing, if it's through public conversation, like it's there's a sense of pride. Like if you go to an event or you go to a class where you see people, you may not be from the same country, but at least some similarities.
Yeah.
So then you feel comfortable.
Yeah, and I think also because of we live in such a big metropolitan area, and then we met different people. You can easily strike up a conversation with people at the grocery store, at the gas station, and even sometimes you take your dog for a walk. I mean, you can bump into people and you can just start up a conversation with them.
Yes, it feels good.
Yeah, so that's how we, Dallas is right now, right?
Yes.
Very multicultural, diverse.
Yes.
Yeah.
How do you balance, I don't want to say it's work, but it still is work. How do you balance out work, family, and then your personal interests?
I think I found it the most, my personal way of doing it is that I need to allocate specific time for doing stuff. Like say, suppose, I go to your dances class, I mean, a certain time of each week, and then I have a schedule, so it's easier for me to follow. And then so I can set aside time for exercising, for dancing, and then another time for my work-related stuff, and then also another time for my personal interests, that kind of stuff. So, and I also find having a supporting group, I mean, it's really important. I mean, I go through your class, I get a chance to meet and become good friend with a lot of different, ladies from different background. And then, we're going through different stage of our life, and then, but we can share our thoughts and idea, and then, we're brainstorming on a lot of stuff as well. So
the value of sharing resources.
Yes, so that's very important for me as well. And then, of course, and talking to my husband and trying to find a balance between our personal life plus, work or, exercise, dancing kind of stuff also helps.
Do you do a lot of things, recreational things with your husband, or do you all have your personal space where he does his own thing and you do your own thing?
I think it's a little bit of both. Sometimes we do things together. Sometimes, I do my own thing. So on the weekend, we tend to do it together, but during the weekday, I do my separate thing, and then he still works, so he does his thing.
It's comedy because every culture is different. And this is why I love these talks. So some of the podcasts or some of the commentaries that they give, they're giving statistics. Like I love statistics, but then I'm sometimes against it because every culture is different.
True.
So with my husband, who's Caribbean, our biggest thing is that we've tried to do things together, but I'm naturally competitive. So if I'm going to ride a bike, it's me racing to ride the bike. I'm not like, oh, let me smell the flowers. Let me listen to the birds. And he's the other way. He just wants to hear the birds. He wants to relax on the bike. And so for me and him, we're like this. But then when we come together, we appreciate each other.
Yeah.
But even playing card games, like I have to win because I get, just that. And I'll get mad because he loves numbers. So numbers are his thing. So if we played card games, 80% of the time he'll win because it's natural for him on the numbers.
Yeah.
And I'll get aggravated. I was like, I'm not talking to you. I'm heading out. And he was like, why do you have to be so competitive? We're just playing. So, but it's that the gender differences, the cultural differences, but then appreciating each other. Because I think with statistics, they were stating that a lot of the divorces happen because you're not doing enough things together. And I'm like, if I did too much with my husband, I would kill him because of my personality.
That's right.
So we appreciate each other based on our similarities, but then we love each other for our differences. And I think those conversations aren't visited enough. There's too much statistics by saying, if you don't meet someone that is in IT, or that's someone who dances, or someone with the same personality characteristics as you, it's not a good match. And I'm like, nope, that's unrealistic, because I've met people who are like me, and whoo, it's a war because we're naturally competitive.
Yeah, I have a friend. I mean, she shared her story with me. She said when she first get married, and then for the first 2 years, she of course, every couple has different story, but they're bound to have some, differences, right?
Yeah.
And then so she found out that in the end, they decided they're going to have a Sunday review meeting just for themselves. And then they talk about things that they like each other, or they dislike each other.
It's like a debrief.
That's right. And then she found it really helpful. And then I was joking with her. She was like, carry our business practice into her family. And then, but I mean, whichever way you find it works.
Correct. Because some people can dissect and experience, and some cannot.
That's right.
They get really offended.
That's right.
So good for her for taking charge by saying, we need to talk about this so we can clean it up.
It's like every Sunday meeting. They have a Sunday meeting. And then their kids all grown up right now. So they sometimes joke with them. Hey, mom and dad, how about your Sunday meeting? They say, oh, we're going to skip this time.
That's so good. Thank you. And that's what I love. Like, within every culture is different. The communication, and then how we express love, how we like things, how we eat, how we come together. So in those myths of understanding or the perception of different cultures, what are one or two things? Because I know the Asian culture is extremely private. And because I've had, I'm going to say, the privilege and the opportunity of living with two different Asian cultures, one Japanese and one Thai, my Thai sister who I love. But there's experiences that we have shared together where I was like, wait, why are you getting so mad? I just asked a simple question. And again, it's me being in my young teens, not knowing, eating at her dad's restaurant, and then me hearing a conversation to the midst of the restaurant. And I'm like, oh, what are they saying? And it's like you being her, and then me right here. And I'm like eating her dad's food. And I was like, what are they saying? She goes, I don't fucking know. She goes, they're speaking Chinese. I was like, I'm sure that's not what that's called. And then she was like, well, I don't know. I was like, but you're Thai. And she goes, it's not the same. So I can laugh now, but in my head, I'm like, but why are you getting so mad? Without understanding context as well. Mm-hmm. So like for even like the Puerto Rican and Cuban to Mexican to Spain to Venezuela, like everyone has their own customs. Mm-hmm. And even the conversation of dialects. Certain words don't cross over into another culture or another country. They're not they don't have the same power or the same context. Yeah. So within your culture, like if there's certain things that you perceive or certain things that was normalized that's no longer normal now, do you feel comfortable of sharing with everybody like one or two things?
I want to share a story in that I saw on a bus, and I came from Taiwan, right, originally. So like you said, Asian culture is more reserved and conservative. Mm-hmm. So a lot of time we don't voice our opinion. And it doesn't mean that we don't feel anything, right? But I come from Taipei. So Taipei is a metropolitan area, just like in New York, like Los Angeles, Chicago. So a lot of, public transportation system. So we have buses, metro, subway, that kind of stuff, high-speed rail, that kind of stuff. So usually people take buses, to commute, for students going to school or people to go to work, that kind of stuff. So it's always really packed. Mm-hmm. I usually use the phrases it's packed like a sardine, because it's, people just like like this. There's no personal space because it's rush hour. Everybody's just trying to get on a bus and get off, right? And it's trying to be on time. So, and then there are some subculture, I would say. It's like sometimes you will bump into like I call it pervert. And then, the man will touch women or even the young student, female student in an appropriate way.
Because as Americans say, boys being boys. Yeah. And then the Latin culture is the machismo. Like every culture has
that.
Yes.
Yeah. So especially on a, really packed, crowded bus, and then the men will touch student, female student, and then on the butt, sometimes on the chest, right? And then back then, when I was a student 20, 30 years ago, people won't say anything. They saw it, and then I don't know whether they're afraid of say something or they feel embarrassed. They don't want to embarrass that person, and they don't want to embarrass themselves as well. So they don't want to say anything. And then when I traveling it was like maybe a year, 2 years ago, and I saw the same thing happen on a bus. And then I was about to get up and then pointed out to that gentleman and told him, you do not do that. Okay? And at the same time, I found like 3 other person, coming from different direction. And then we, reach out and then trying to say something and support that student. And then one of the lady even, talked to the driver. And then the driver just demand that passenger to get off at the next stop. So I find something that, it's sometimes it's because the cultural change, and sometimes because that people know that we should not just be silent anymore. We should voice our opinion, and then it's also a strong testimony for a women empowerment as well. So I sometimes feel like that culture change, people change. So, I mean, it's good that we know that we need to voice our opinion, and then and to make, even though we sometimes make a mistake, but we know we have the courage to change it, to correct it.
And I think that's a beautiful testimony, because sometimes we forget the influences that we have upon each other when we travel. When we travel, we see so much. And then when you have your opportunity of living there, not in resort areas, but with the people, you see the big difference. You can be in certain countries and you can see people sticking up for others by saying, no, you don't touch her. That's not what we do. And then others voice their opinions. But I feel like sometimes if we don't leave what's normal, what has been normalized for so long, which is suppression of women, if we don't leave that environment and go somewhere else and we see how women are treated, where it is more freedom, more choices, then we're like, wait, okay, if this is normal here, that women have rights, then why don't we have it? And then you slowly start breathing that exact same way of living. So when you go back, you start seeing things. Because that's one thing I've realized traveling as well. If how I was raised, if it's living in different homes, poverty, whatever it may be, when I go to other countries, I see certain things that other people who may have been living there don't even see it. Where I was like, wait, how can you not see that? But then I had to understand, if they were raised wealthy, then they're not going to see other things that's not normal to them. It's like it's like telling someone that the sky is blue, but they just see it as red. It's at how simple that is, but then how beautiful and powerful it is when we allow ourselves to understand that, versus forcing someone to say, why don't you do this? Why don't you say this? Where I'm like, they've never even left their country, but you're forcing them to act a certain way when they don't know any different.
That's right.
Why don't you live there first, at least 30 days, so you can understand? And it changes you. So people can have a different perception by saying, women are not allowing this. They don't want it, but they don't have the opportunity to say something. Yes, because being jailed, or parents, let's say if you're a teenager and that happens to you and you say something, and then all of a sudden now your parents are being harassed at work because now you as a youth are trying to change things, but now your family's being harassed because that's looked down upon. But when you have a larger population that are accepting that change and are doing it together,
Yes.
then it's not a pushback.
Yeah.
And I think that's beautiful because you see that and you experience that and you get to tell your story.
Yeah.
That many people don't understand that evolution of change takes time.
Does takes time.
Takes time. And I think that's the big separation with the youth that are born and raised in America, but parents are born and raised in a different country and come here. They still have all those experiences within them, which is like the seasonings of cooking. You're going to cook of what's normal, that has what connects you to your home. That's how you're going to cook.
That's right.
So sometimes conversation happens like that. That's why I experienced that with the different families I lived with who are immigrants in this country. It was a very disconnect. But now in my older years now of looking back by going, oh, that makes so much sense. They weren't being mean to you or angry towards you. They were just experiencing their lives. So then you don't make the mistakes as a youth or for you to see the opportunities that you have here based on the sacrifices of the immigrants. I think that's the disconnect in conversation with the youth. Because there is so many choices here. There's so much freedom here that you can't easily be lost.
True. And sometimes too many choices it's the problem.
Correct. You lose sight of who your forefathers are, to why they came to this country. That yes, freedom is beautiful, but if you don't use it for the right reasons, you can be lost. Trying to find yourself. Because there's so many different ways to identify yourself now that you forget who you want to be or who you are. So it's kind of like bringing that back in through open conversation to understand your family.
Yes, I think that's precious too.
Yes, because it allows you to feel connected. Because some people never have the opportunity of going back to their own country for whatever reason. So let's say an example, like Cubans. A lot of them, once they leave, they're not allowed back in. So there's other countries that are like that as well. So allowing them to have that space to communicate so they can say their why, their sacrifices of why they came here. So then the next generation, you have a better opportunity. But a better opportunity is not so you can get lost in that opportunities, but it's to know that yes, you can choose, but don't walk into everything. It's almost like a little kid walking into a candy store. Don't eat everything. And then you have a stomachache later or you're throwing up. It's allowing them to be guided with the older generation, the wiser ones, by saying, let me guide you so you know how to do things in moderation, so you don't consume your body, your soul, and your mind, and then you lose yourself. And then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what my purpose is because you took in too much too quickly. Who's your strongest role model in your life?
My dad has always been my, biggest inspiration. He was raised and born in a farm with 8 other siblings. And so back then, the family, the financial is not very good with his family. So after high school, my dad has to leave school and then to start working as a brick mover. On
How old was he?
He was probably around 17 or 18 years old.
And this was in Taiwan?
Taiwan, yeah, after he graduated from high school. So so he worked at the construction site for almost 3 years. And in between, he will take on different art job, and just earn more money, to help the family financially. And then since he's the oldest. Okay. And then 3 years later, while the family financial situation improved, he decided that he wanted to pursue his college degree. So he in the end, he went for a college and then pursued his international business degree. So he's pretty good, and then successful, graduated, and then have a good career, that kind of stuff. So what I admire about him the most that he has the courage to change the status quo. Because most people, in my dad's situation back then, they will probably start with whatever the job they can work, and then just live their life. For the rest of their life. And my dad has the courage to change, and then he know that he's definitely want to get a college degree. So he did make some sacrifice for his family, and then once everything situation is permitted, he is courage enough to go and pursue his career and then his degree that way. So that's what I found the most inspiring for my dad.
What's a statement or a quote, like within your culture or within yourself, that you really hold on, that's very dear to your heart, that you would like to share with everyone?
I always there's a proverb in Chinese called where there's a will, there's a weight. This is a really powerful statement, right? So, I think in the end, what matters the most is your determination. And then as long as you have a strong determination and a persistency to work toward your goal, you will always find success in the end. So even though sometimes the result might not be what you expected, but along the way you will find the courage, and you also gain a lot of experience from those failures as well. So and those in the end will become a trust. Whatever you bump into during the process, you might bump into a good friend, that will become your lifelong friend, right?
Yes,
and then
the journey.
And then, that's right. And then they accompany you through the whole journey, and then that become the treacherous memory for your life.
Yeah, it's about the journey, not the destination.
That's right.
And if there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, and I think sometimes we forget that, based again, like when there's so many choices, it's hard for you to find, okay, well, which one is the will? Because there is so many choices.
Yes.
Yeah, it's having that quiet voice and looking within before moving forward.
That's right. It's tough, right?
Yeah,
but it's not always easy to find the right direction.
Correct.
Yeah.
How would you personally identify what love is? If it's metaphorically, if it's through action, how do you identify what love is?
I think love is a pretty complicated emotion, right? It's and as an Asian immigrant, and generally speaking, Asian culture is more reserved and more conservative, so we don't usually say it in a loud way. Or express it. So you will have to sometimes find love in a subtle way. For example, my dad. He's not usually outspoken about the love for us, right? So usually when he go out, especially when he have some business trip, he will travel around the world, and then he will give us some gift, and then he will not give it to us directly. He will ask my mom to pass it along. I guess that's his way of saying he loves us, but he just doesn't have the courage maybe to express in a vocal way. And then so you just have to find it in a really subtle way.
I think with men it's different. I feel like sometimes, and even more with the Asian culture, that he probably wanted to give the gift, but he knew he would get emotional by seeing you all.
Yes.
And it would be considered a weakness if a man shows their emotions.
I see.
And so for men, it's easier to not be in the presence when you know it's gonna create vulnerability.
I see.
And you're gonna show your emotions.
Probably.
And it's a generational. It's because now that's moved.
Yeah, it's a generation thing. It's also a cultural thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
That shift.
Yeah. So like my son will always, whenever, when my dad was still alive, my son will always give grandpa a big hug. And then grandpa is like, oh, so sweet, you know. But, you know, for them, in their culture, hug is like too intimidating and too it's not affection that they would do. But for a grandkids to do it to a grandpa, he think it's fine. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, it is. The love with grandparents is different, but the touching has changed compared to how it was.
Yeah.
On the similarities with people who are from Taiwan, is there any other Asian culture that you feel like there's compatibility? If it's with Korean or Japanese, Polynesian, what's one Asian culture that you feel there's similarities with the Taiwanese people?
I think we do share similarity among like Chinese culture, Taiwanese culture, Korean culture, and Japanese culture is that the respect for elderly people, or sometimes we say, you know, to our parents, we will, at least in my generation, I found it that people, this is the model that we look after. We have to respect the elderly people. We have to be too nice to our parents, and then this is the common culture, I think, that share among us. But I think it does change a little bit for the younger generation. So they probably don't have that, you know, thinking. Probably not focused that much on it. But I still hope that, you know, they still respect the elderly people that way. You know, yeah.
The similarities on the respect on the elders. Is there anything that you would like people to know about you as Cindy, living in America or living in Texas, who still finds so much pride to who you are and where you came from, as well as the many sacrifices that you have made to be here? And then now these 3 years, you don't feel as obligated to take care of so many things now. You still do, but it's just not so much responsibility and pressure.
Yeah, just, you know, shift focus, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. I think I want to share a story that my personal experience. It's I used to be a really introvert, shy person. I do not talk to people. I do not talk to people that, it's hard for me to make friends, right? And then so school assembly is a really daily common activity, in most of the Taiwanese school. And so every morning, all the students will gather together at the huge playground, and the principal will announce, different communication stuff, or we can do like award ceremony. And sometimes we do sing like a school song or do a prayer together, and then at my school, that was when I was in 3rd grade back then. And then my principal made it and turned it into a speech competition among different classes, right? So, and my teacher made me represent our class. So I have to get on the stage and then deliver a speech. And then I was so shy, and then I was so intimidating.
How old were you?
3rd grade was probably 10 years old, around 10 years old. So I was like, I remember it took me a couple weeks to prepare for the speech. And then when it's my turn to get on the stage, we have a stage, so people have to get on the stage and then deliver the speech. And I was so nervous, and I feel like I forgot everything I want to say, And then I can feel like I was start to talk in a really shaky voice, and then I have tears in my eyes, and suddenly I remember my teacher, told me that, just treat everybody like a watermelon in the field, So now I started to remember, okay, so there are 2,500 it's almost like a 2,500 student, there. And then people were staring at me. And then I was like, oh my gosh, okay, what am I supposed to do, right? What am I supposed to do? So, and then, so suddenly, I came to my senses, and I remember my teacher told me about that. Treat everybody as like a watermelon. So I, I move on, and then it turned out to be quite okay. And then I pull it through in the end. So after that experience, I found myself change, so I become more open up. I have the courage to start talking to people, to communicate with people, to make friends. And then everything said, I think that's a really important lesson in my life. And then up until now, and I still cherish that experience. And then, and then I feel appreciate that the teacher made me do that.
Do you feel like that's also molded you moving forward in everything you do?
Yes, I think so. Definitely have a really essential factor on me.
Yes.
Now I know that it doesn't hurt to open up and communicate with people, and then to, to approach even a stranger and voice your opinion. It's okay.
Yeah. And I've noticed that with classes. If it's the normal Afro-Caribbean classes, or if I'm teaching K-pop or assisting behind scenes with K-pop, as a prime example, being there, I was in the back of the room, and I think you were in the middle of the class. And I could tell if I was struggling in the back to understand what the teacher was saying, I was like, I know the front and the middle row are struggling too. So I waved my hands and I was like, nobody can hear you. But then she wasn't paying attention to me. Either she didn't want to or what. So then I went around the room and looked at her going, okay, nobody can hear you. And then she just looked and then rolled her eyes, looked back the other way. I was like, okay, this is going to be heavy. So then I saw you turn around and look at me. You were like, we can hear it. And I was like, okay, never mind. Let me just go over there and hit the pause on her music, because she was still trying to teach on top of the music when she had a soft voice plus a mute. And I was like, this is a no-go all the way around. So I hit that and she was frustrated. And then I let her know again, nobody can hear you. So then I go back to the room. She starts teaching again. And she's like, sa, 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 sa. And then that's where you're like, we can't hear her. And I was like, I'm sorry, Cindy, but I can't go back over there. I already tried to get the attention and do something like 3 to 4 times. And so which is great for you to do that, especially in a room where there's, 15 and plus people who take out the time to come to class, who pay for the class, who just create accommodations just to be in that space. Because the power that it has to say something, and others do feel intimidated, or they don't feel like they have the confidence to say something. Because at the end of the day, I realized like no matter who's in the front, it's just a space or it's just a title. Nobody is more powerful than the other person. We're all on the same stage. If we treat everyone like that, so much change can happen. Versus saying, hey, I'm the director, you don't talk to me that way. Or talk to my secretary first, and then my secretary will tell me. And I'm like, this is never going to get solved if I have to go through 4 people before you even get the information. So yeah, thank you for that. Because I feel like teachers or guides or elders, there are seeds to who we're meant to become. And if we don't allow those experiences to happen, how it actually hurts us versus helping us. Because I think now there is a disconnect on constructive criticism about guiding someone. If you're saying, if you tell someone, okay, let's not cry, let's think about it this way. Sometimes people get offended by saying, why are you pointing out I'm crying? I'm just showing my emotions. You're like, I'm not saying what you crying is bad. I'm just helping you to see it this way. But I think people get stuck on those first 2 words versus seeing the full sentence.
I see.
And that's why communicating with different cultures matters.
Yes, that's right.
Because there is a sensitivity in what conversation is right now. That it's hard for us to be open and honest based on personal experiences, or what it means to mentor someone by saying, hey, I saw this happen. Let's talk about it. Where someone's like, oh, I don't have time. And I'm like, you do have time. I just saw you eat a cookie. I just saw you chatting it up with another friend. But it's because they want to avoid the uncomfortable conversation. But they end up getting hurt in the long run because life doesn't work like that. You have to visit those uncomfortable experiences to see a different way of living. To say, oh, okay, I didn't know I was doing that. Oh, I didn't know I could see it that way. So I can do this moving forward versus doing this, or doing this.
Yeah.
That's where I'm like, if it's Gen Z or if it's millennial, that yes, we are Gen X, but every generation, there's a shift that happens that I think it has to be visited so we can understand each other. Because we know AI is taking over. We know robotics is taking over.
Oh, yeah.
So yes, the robotics is going to tell you what you want to hear.
That's right.
They are the yes things. They're not going to be open and honest. So it is a different, I don't even know what the world's going to look like 50 years from now.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know either.
So making comedy, so we're not in that place yet, but saying, hey, how can we all come to the same table so we can understand? This is what's missing. Like your friend about having debrief in her relationship, dissecting experiences, which see the beauty of that versus saying, oh, they're just going to be mean to me. No, I'm not here to be mean to you. I'm here to help you understand, because I want you to see things in a collective approach versus there's some cultures, and I'm just saying like within America, that see Asian culture as passing. But they don't realize the word passing means, for those who don't understand what passing is, they feel Asians get away. They don't get shitted on. That's the best way for me to say. I'm trying to think of a diplomatic word, but nothing's coming out right. They're not shitted on because they don't see them kicking and screaming to have their own rights. But I try to help other cultures understand, because if they never live with an Asian culture, whatever it may be, Japanese, Korean, Vietnamese, Chinese, they're not going to understand what they experience behind closed doors. Yes, they do go through the same hardships in front of the doors, but their approach isn't the same.
Yes.
They talk about it behind closed doors with a significant other. And sometimes they don't even share it with their significant other, because it's almost like shamed upon by saying, just keep on being persistent. Persistence is going to win. Don't show your emotions, because it is considered a weakness. So the same hardships are there. It's just not expressed the exact same way. That's why I was telling people, go behind the curtain, listen, close your eyes and just listen. Because when we allow ourselves to listen, then you could see a different way of what's really happening. But if you allow your eyes to judge what truth is, it's going to leave you in an incorrect way of living.
Yeah, I think you say it really well. I mean, sometimes listening is very important, right? I mean, before you make a judgment, try to listen and understand.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, because I think the word passing is used too much without understanding. And that's why I try to bring context to information when people are like, oh, it's because Asian people are passing. I'm like, wait, what the hell does that mean? And then they'll break it down for me. And I'm like, no, that's not what they're experiencing. They just don't express their frustration out loud, even though they go through the exact same racism or marginalized or submission the exact same way as many other cultures. But there is a different hardship because we know what it is to say something back. It is very empowering to say something when something is incorrect. It is a different type of strength to stay quiet, even though you want to say something. So, but I do believe like generational things change.
Yes.
Because you see the approach of other cultures.
Yes, that's right.
So I do thank you for taking out the time to talk to me.
Thank you so much for spending the time, with me. Yeah.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
Yes.
A lot of fun.
Yes. Because telling your story your personal experience is what it means to be born and raised, and then now crossing over here. And then when you go back, you start voicing your opinions because you know how it matters to say something.
That's right.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I appreciate it tremendously.
Thank you.
So good.
Thank you, Becky.
Those humble beginnings that influences us and really impacts us to be who we're meant to be moving forward.
Yes.
And you carry that with everything you do. And I think it's beautiful because I think we all have that. It's just some of us aren't willing to pull out that drawer to revisit that experience. But like we were saying within the Asian culture, like the Latin community too, like there's a social casting system. The poor, if something happens to us, if you're poor, if it's rape, anything, you don't talk about it, or they'll send the child away, which was a situation that happened to me. So one, I didn't even know I was adopted. I always thought I was sick because I was always the whitest one. So I always thought I was always sick. So when that happened to me when I was 13, they sent me to med school. They never talked about it. There was no problems. There was no therapy.
Yeah.
And there was no talking about it.
Yeah. They try to run away.
Correct.
From the problem.
Run away from the problem and push it underneath. And we know, like anytime especially as women, anytime that happens to us, as we mature, we end up not making good choices because we never understood what happened to us in our younger years. So you stating that happens with us too. Now it's very different. There's more like the social casting. No matter if you're rich or poor, it's never talked about. So technically, like my great grandmother, she was raped. So the person who she married, that was the rapist, which was the same situation that was going to happen to me. They were going to force me to marry my rapist. So it was my stepdad that stepped in by saying, he was like, no, we're not going to do for her what happened to your mother.
What you think, right?
Correct. That you are a product of a rape. And it does a psychological, that's why the schizophrenia, the bipolar, like all that is because of that. It's trying to create something, I don't even know how to say it because there is no correct terminology to say how it's okay to recycle something to supposedly give birth because that's the right way. When that we all know that's not the right way. You just end up regenerating bad behavior. That's what it is, bad behavior, because you don't know any better. It takes people to fight back and to talk about it. So when we communicate it, we're not putting shame or bad to it. We're just acknowledging the change that needs to happen.
Yeah, and then we bring awareness
right there
to try to change,
Correct.
Yes, in the future, right?
Correct. Because it was believed if a woman isn't fully in her wholeness, that now she's unclean and nobody's going to want her. So let's just force that to happen or let's send her away.
Yeah.
So, but I realize that happens in many cultures. It's just not the Latin. Because of how women have always been seen or unseen. In the 1600s, which I recently just learned, Catholicism used to have, they felt like women brought in too much of, what is it called, lust or desire from men. So in the 1600s, within the Catholicism, they took women to be off of the choir. You're no longer no more women to be part of the choir because you bring unclean thoughts. So you're unclean, so we need to remove you. This happened in Europe. So when it happened in Europe in the 1600s, it lasted for 300 years for no woman to be on any stage because she was considered to be unclean. So then that's where castrating a young boy started to happen. So they can hold the notes of a voice as a woman. So they believe it's a soprano and the alto. So then castration started happening. But it gave birth to that because they removed women and put in young boys. But to carry that voice how women did, they needed to create that. And it was called castrati. So the term, they created a flower of the word. It wasn't castration, it was called castrati. When I heard that, I'm like, oh shit, that's the problem. Because people assume that it's humanity do it, but it's so many influences. It's religion, it's an era, that culture, that mindset, but now the evolution for that now, but 300 years of that same behavior. And around, so that happened there, so that bleeds around the world, and it stays for a long time. Because now we have social media, so now it's different. Now it's more of a it's like a fireball because of social media. Before, you would have to hope that someone was commuting or migrating, going from one country to another or to a continent to talk about new ways.